Hey, what's up guys? In this week's video, one of you guys asked for me to make a video on what I thought about EMS carrying concealed on duty. Well, I've been in this game for over 30 years now. Started as a cop, I was a SWAT sniper, I went to the fire department, I'm a SWAT medic, flight medic. So I've seen stuff, right? I've been involved in things, right? We're talking, this is the real world. This is not a Reddit thread. This is not mental masturbation. This is the real deal, right? So let me tell you about, and it was around 1996, before I went to SWAT, I was working undercover, and my firearm, which was a Smith & Wesson revolver, was on an ankle holster under my jeans. Go to take down this guy. Guy reaches for his waistband. Come to find out later on, he had a serrated knife in the waistband. So we're fighting for his hands, him and I. He's trying to pull whatever it is he's trying to pull out. My gun is on my ankle, right? So I have to hold on to this knife for dear life because I could not go for my gun because it's on my ankle. It's in my jeans. We're in between a car and a wall. And finally, I remember seeing a fist come out of nowhere and clock the guy. The guy was like 280 pounds, like 6'5", big dude. And I was just holding on to both his hands for dear life. I could not go for that gun, right? So, like I said, this isn't theory. This isn't, people talking back and forth on Reddit, I want to carry a gun. No, you shouldn't carry a gun. No, this is real life. When we're talking about real life out here. So if you look at new laws like the Florida law where you're allowed to carry concealed without any type of permit, and also the laws in Florida for tactical medics, which is a whole other topic. And this gets talked about in Reddit threads. They point to SWAT medics and people try to make that argument, which I'm gonna go over in a little bit here. I have some notes because I can't just fire off all this off my top of my head. But the arguments are pro and con on Reddit. As far as you want to read, you can be there for hours. It's a huge rabbit hole, right? So Florida has a law now that you can carry concealed without any type of permit, and they also allow tactical medics to carry without being sworn, right? So there's a lot to unpack there, right? So the pros for this, if you read on Reddit threads, is that if you work in a rural area and PD is a long distance away, and you have this little fanny pack or an appendix carry firearm under your shirt, but who's carrying appendix with a tucked in shirt, right? So you either have to have a fanny pack or on your ankle. And again, going back to my scenario, you go on a call, something happens, X, Y, Z, you decide that it's a lethal deadly force situation, and now you're going to go for this gun. So now you are trying to deploy a firearm in a lethal force, in a deadly force situation from concealed. How fast do you think you're going to be? So like I said, there's a lot to unpack. The cons, obviously, on the Reddit threads are we are EMS. We do no harm, and we should not be coming in acting like cops. So there are obviously valid points on both ends. You don't want to go on a call and get hurt. We had a call. One of our suppression trucks responded to a call. PD was on scene. They had been in the house for quite a while. The subject, which wasn't really made clear to the fire units when they showed up that the person was a subject, because he was not handcuffed and he was sitting on a couch. And he was speaking Spanish, and he tells the fire officer, hey, I just want you to let him know that this is his fault. He's referring to the cop. Cops are there in the living room. Guy reaches under the couch and pulls out a firearm. Okay, so if you were there by yourself, think about the scenario. If you're there by yourself with your clipboard or your aid bag and you're in patient care mode, and boom, firearm is produced, now what? What are you gonna do? Create space, try to grab the gun. The best thing probably it would be to try to control the firearm. But now, what kind of training do you have? That leads me to training, right? So everything with firearms is training. It goes back to training, how much or how little training you've had. So a lot of what I read on Reddit was, go out and want to carry a, little 380 or a compact, the Glock or whatever it is. Where are you going to carry it? Are you training when you go to the range? And these were the conversations that were had about what the training would be. So what would the training be? You would have to shoot from concealed on the range, okay, from a bag, from your ankle, because most agencies that I've seen, EMS providers don't show up with, they do, like, at 3 in the morning or whatever. And if you're showing up like that, you should tuck your shirt in and look professional. But anyway, it's a whole other video. So you are showing up with your shirt tucked in and where you have this firearm. So that's how you have to train, right? So when we're in here, thousands of hours that we spend in this building, right, doing simunitions, all right? So for those of you who don't know what simunitions is, it's a paint round that we switch out our barrels on our active firearms, or we have dedicated firearms that we can use for it. And it's a paint round, kind of like paintball, but it uses that same caliber with a paint projectile, right? So we know when you get hit, it hurts, or UTM, right? So we come in here and we train that. Another thing is a lot of these people that are talking about carrying a firearm as an EMS professional have never even been in a fight, probably never been punched in the face, they've never grappled, they've never done any type of MMA or any type of combative martial art, all right, combat sports like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Let's start there. Can you even control another human being trying to take your life or trying to strangle you to death on the ground? Let's start with that. Because if you at least went in there more prepared, you might be able to de-escalate the situation and not jump to the gun right away, because things change when you start carrying. People act differently, right? And they're going to act differently. They might be more reserved because they have the training and they know, okay, well, I know I am trained to a certain level, or they don't have the training and now they're scared because now, like it happens all over the country every year, officers that carry every day on their hip, exposed, get their guns taken away from them and get them used on them, okay? Or, like we were told in the academy, every time you show up to a scene, there's a gun on the scene and it's on your hip, right? And you see these incidents all the times where subjects disarm the cop. Sometimes they use it against them, sometimes it ends well, but that's another thing. Once you bring that gun into the scene and you decide to pull it out, and now this, like I had, 280-pound, 6'5" beast, right, decides to go for your gun, now what? Are you trained for that? So you should start with, all right, let's get some training on hand-to-hand combat, see how that goes. Are you even the type of person to want to endure that, right? So training, it goes back to training. And then how often are you going to do this training? Obviously, every department would be different. And I think most departments are going to err on the side of, yeah, we're not going to have our people carry because, oh, here's another one. So most, let's say, ambulance units that we see that come to transport when I'm on a suppression or whatever, have 2 people on it. So let's say I'm the one carrying and my partner doesn't. What happens when things go sideways and I decide to pull out my gun, or it's a deadly force confrontation like the one that I referred to, the guy on the couch, and I'm the one armed, that my partner is not. I went to the training, he or she did not. And now, are they going to be on your side? Are they going to jump in and help, or are they going to beat feet out of the structure, or whatever the scenario is? I would think that they're going to do that. They're going to get the hell out of here. They're not going to be like hands-on. They might, and that might be like something that clearly like separates you guys. Though, hey, he's carrying, it might make the other person uneasy. It's a big ball to unravel. My thinking is, I don't think it's a good idea, because if you're not in here training all the time, training with simunitions, training force on force, right? Making those split-second decisions. And we see it here when you make an entry. And if you go too fast, by the time rounds start flying, you don't know where, that's why For some things you move fast, for some things you move slow, but now we're talking about tactics, totally different conversation. But if you have zero experience with that type of training, where shoot, no shoot, and it's actually, you're pulling out a firearm, whether it has paint or you're on the range and it's under time, under stress, I think it's an ill-conceived concept to put EMS personnel out there with a firearm in a fanny pack or on their ankle to go out there to run calls, and God forbid something happens. Now you're going for that gun. You're introducing a gun into a scenario that wasn't already there. Maybe it is. Maybe the subject had a gun. Maybe create distance, get cover, get out of there, whatever you can do. I think there's other ways. I think that it's a bad idea for a population that doesn't have the hours of training with the firearm, and I don't even see how that would be possible to take an EMS professional and be like, okay, you're gonna have your regular work hours, and then we're gonna pull you, 8 hours a month to go do force-on-force training or range training or that, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, something to bring you to a level. I don't see ambulance agencies or EMS agencies, fire departments doing that, right? So the topic that people have talked about, like SWAT medics. Well, I'm a SWAT medic. The 4 guys that are detached here right now are SWAT medics. We go into a very specific situation, right? A very specific situation where the subject is in the structure, there's a perimeter, he's contained, we know what we got. And now we start with what? We start with negotiations. Negotiators start talking to the person and try to talk them out amicably and to get them out without any gunfire or anybody getting hurt, right? So there's steps that are taken, right? We're armed to protect ourselves. There are medics that are not armed. And obviously the people that on Reddit that talk about, the SWAT medics are talking about armed, obviously, but we are armed to protect ourselves if I'm in this room, and God forbid, I would not start treatment without security set, but let's say something happens and my security had to move, well, I have a firearm to protect myself, or moving up somewhere, right? It's totally different. It's not showing up to a chest pain call or to somebody having some type of mental issue, and now they start yelling, and you feel, because you don't have that level of training, you feel that yelling is warrant pulling out a firearm and telling them to stay back. That's going to look bad when you go to an inquest or you go to give a deposition to homicide or a grand jury about why you took this person's life because they were waving their hands loudly and yelling, because they're going to hold you to that same level as a cop, right? Because they're going to say, well, you had the firearm, you had the training, and my client started yelling and moving loudly, and you took their life or you injured them. Okay, so there's a lot to consider, and I don't think it's a great idea. So that's my take on it, and I hope that I answered your question to the person that asked it, and I'll see you on the next one.